Violent incidents against Christian communities in Jerusalem increased this year. Racist slurs in the Armenian Quarter, a gang of religious Jewish teens throwing chairs at a Christian restaurant, or violence directed at a cemetery. David Pileggi, the rector of the Anglican Evangelical Christ Church, on his way to the historic graveyard on Mount Zion, where in January 2 Jewish teenagers desecrated 28 gravestones. Surveillance camera footage shows the 14 and 18-year-olds who were identified by police and indicted for vandalism carried out for racist reasons. The cemetery that hosts influential personalities from Jerusalem's more than 100-year-old Anglican community has seen violent harassment before. But what happened in January, says Pileggi, has a wider political background.
I think it's obvious for that small minority here in Jerusalem or throughout Israel that has an axe to grind against the Christian community, that think we're idol worshipers, that think and somehow we're polluting the land of Israel by our presence. They have ministers in the government who in the past has certainly winked at such people when they have committed illegal acts.
Pileggi holds Israeli authorities responsible for condemning religious extremism coming from the margins of the Jewish community. He thinks adding classes about Christianity in school curricula could foster better understanding and the enforcement of law.
I think it's essential not just for us, but for the state of Israel and for the rule of law in this country that there should be a crackdown as soon as possible, yes, on this kind of extremism, because it's not just about us. I think it's about all minorities, and as I mentioned before, it's about the rule of law.
Those whose task it is to enforce exactly that are the police. They say they're in constant contact with Christian leaders.
From what I've heard from the community leaders themselves, the relationship is very well with the police force here and with the police commanders. So they know where to reach us. They know that we're spread out throughout the Old City. Even right now during this month where there's numerous holidays happening at the same time, there's an influx of thousands of police officers spread out. And they're there to protect not just the visitors coming in, but the people who live here.
Still, there is some who have a different impression. Abbot Nicodemus Schnabel from the Dormition Abbey, also on Mount Zion, a few hundred meters away, has faced many attacks directed against him personally as he walks through the streets. His monastery, too, has been attacked. In 2015, a serious arson attack on the sister abbey in Tabra in the Galilee destroyed parts of the church compound. Several people were injured and had to be hospitalized. The attacker, a young Jewish extremist from an unauthorized settlement outpost in the West Bank associated with the group Hilltop Youth, was defended then by attorney Itamar Ben-Gvir, now National Security Minister in today's government. The Hilltop Youth are considered a radical group of youngsters who settle uncontrolled in the West Bank and resent any law enforcement by the State of Israel. To Abbot Schnabel, this indicates a structural problem.
The current government makes a big difference. This I could really say, because if you see 2023, how many anti-Christian attacks we have here in Jerusalem, and really I could say also if it's about the frequency, how I face personal attacks, it's really explosion.
Schnabel came to the Holy City from Germany 20 years ago. The unique religious diversity and the great relations with and admiration for other faiths is what makes him stay. Mount Zion houses the tomb of King David, as well as several nationalist Orthodox institutions and communities. But harassment happens elsewhere in Jerusalem.
The people who spit on me, of course, I know very well. This is again, we come back to this right-wing, national religious Jewish youngsters very often. And yeah, it's a reality. It's a daily reality. It's what I face several times a day in these days. So, for example, I had these days visitors that were shocked because I was they spat on me. And I was not recognizing anymore, because for me, I'm used to it.
Schnabel says he doesn't report many of these incidents to the police anymore, as he was often told that surveillance cameras were broken and the perpetrators couldn't be identified when he filed a complaint. He senses a lack of motivation to investigate crimes from the extremist Jewish community. The Israeli police says it follows any complaint, unconnected to who the alleged perpetrators are.
When people feel that they're under a certain threat or, like you mentioned, the spitting phenomenon, We want these people to report it to the police so that we can open a case and we can act accordingly. We don't want this happening in our backyard.
Abbot Schnabel and Reverend Pileggi say they would like to also see senior Israeli political figures condemn attacks and pay solidarity visits to actively support the Christian communities. Church leaders are concerned that extremism might grow and that some perpetrators might feel protected by figures in the Israeli government and that Israeli society should be aware. Now, the Israeli police, on the other hand, says it is doing everything to safeguard the Christian community, especially here in Jerusalem, and tries to protect them from any kinds of attacks. Now, both sides hope for calm Easter holidays ahead. Pia Steckelbach, reporting for I-24 News.